All right, so now we are going to discuss about the outliers, okay, of our data. All right, so I think you see the word outliers before, or I mentioned it before during our class also. Okay, outliers, sometimes we also call it as extreme value, which is extremely big or extremely small when you compare to the data in the set of your data, all right? But actually, it's very hard for us to decide how can we say that it is, how to say, it is extreme value. Like maybe some of you feel, okay, like this number looks like a bit too big compared to other data. So this should be the outlier. But maybe to some other people, right, when they look at the value, they might think that, hey, no, I feel that this is still okay, not very big, not very far away from the original data that we have. So it's very, how to say, it's very blur, right? So to decide whether the data is an outlier or not, therefore, they actually created another a benchmark, or maybe a value, okay, a guideline for us to decide whether is it a outlier or not. Okay, so to check for the outlier, generally you need to know what are the limit first. So to detect the outlier, okay, so you need to know what is the lower limit and what is the upper limit. Okay, so how we get the lower limit? Lower limit means you take Q1 minus 1.IQR, and then Q3 plus 1.5 IQR multiply with IQR, 1.5 IQR, and from here you will get the limit for upper and lower of your data. Then from there, any value less than lower limit or any value more than upper limit, we call them as outliers. So this one will be much more straightforward instead of you are guessing whether this data should consider as extreme value or outliers or not. So by follow the guideline given here, then generally you, when you want to decide, it is much more easier also. Alright, okay, so for the lower limit and upper limit formula, usually it will not be provided in the formula booklet, so just make sure that you remember these two before you go to exam. Alright, so this is what we have for the outliers part. Okay, so let us have a look for example 29. Okay, it is one of the past question that I take out that asks about the outlier one. So if you look at this, you'll see that there are 27 people, and then this is the annual amount money spent on clothes. So you see some of the people, they only spend $10, okay, $10, right, per year, okay, to buy the clothes. Some of them maybe spend until 500 something per year. Actually 500 something per year is not much also to me, I don't know. Okay, so 27 here, these are the spendings of them, okay, on clothes for a year. So an outlier is defined as any data value which is more than 1.5 times the interquartile range above the upper quartile, or more than 1.5 times the interquartile range below the lower quartile. So this sentence, actually they are just telling you that what is the meaning of outlier. So again, outlier means that any value that is smaller than Q1 minus 1.5 IQR, and any value that is more than Q3 plus 1.5 IQR. So all these are the outliers. Okay, so for part number 3, for this question, so this question originally got part 1, part 2, that asks you about some other things. Okay, but I just want to focus on the outlier part, therefore I just take out part 3 only. So now they want you to list out the outliers. Okay, so again, before you want to find out the outliers, right, you need to know what is IQR. So what is IQR? You need to know what is your Q1 and Q3. Okay, so again, you are having 27 people. Okay, so first set, the first part of the data, maybe you have 13. Second set, you also have 13. So 13 plus 13 is 26. Therefore, the median will be the 14 value. Okay, so this is the median. All right, so you count, okay. I think this set of data, the first row got 9, right? 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So that means this 14 number, this value itself is the median. But to me, the median is not important here. I want to know Q1 and Q3. So again, for 13 here, I try to split it again, becomes 6 and also 6. So 6 plus 6 is a 12, right? So the center value here, the 7 value will be your Q1. So you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so here you can write it out first. The Q1 is equals to 140. So what is your Q3? Q3 also will be the 7th number after the median. So you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so your Q3 should be 210. Correct or not? Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, okay. Correct. So that's why your Q1 and Q3 is here, 140, then 210. Okay, so now, once you know your Q1 and Q3 already, then you can calculate the IQR, interquartile range. So that means 210 minus 140. Therefore, your interquartile range should be 70. Okay, so let's start to find out the lower limit. Okay, so what is the lower limit again? You have to take Q1 minus 1.5 IQR. So what is your Q1 here? 140 minus 1.5 IQR is 70. Okay, so you calculate out the lower limit first and you'll get 35. Okay, then how about the upper limit? Okay, so the upper limit will be Q3 plus 1.5 IQR. Okay, so it's a Q3 210 plus 1.5 multiplied with 70. Okay, so what do you get here? 210 multiplied 1.5 times 70. So 210 plus 1.5 multiplied with 70. So we get 315. Okay, so now you should know that any value less than 35 and any value more than 315 will be the outliers. And they ask you to list out the outliers in this question, right? So you can list out all of them. So what is the outliers here? 10 will be the outlier because 10 is below 35. 40 is not outliers anymore. So that means all the numbers are safe here. Any number more than 315 will be outliers. Then you can see this one. 450 and also 570 are both outliers. So you just list them out. So in this set of data, you're having 3 outliers here, which is 450, 570, and also the 10. Okay, so this is how we actually detect the outlier. You have to remember the formula for the lower limit and also the upper limit. Okay, all right. Then now let's go back to the shape of the data. Okay, so we actually try to skip that part. Sometimes in the question, right, after they ask you to sketch the diagram or whatsoever, they will actually ask you what is the shape of the distribution. Or maybe they will ask you like, what is the distribution of the data? Okay, when they're asking for the shape or what is the distribution of the data, generally you need to know that you might have 3 different answers. The first one is negatively skewed. The second one is symmetry, and after that is the positively skewed. Okay, so symmetrical or symmetry, I think it's very easy to understand. And that means when you look at the box, okay, so when you look at the box, your overall set of data and also the box, you will see that everything is quite symmetrical, left-hand and right-hand side through the median. So we call this set of data as symmetrical. Okay, all right, so this is what you have symmetrical. And then next, we talk about the positively skewed. Okay, so if let's say we're having positively skewed, you will see that from the whole set of data, right, your median, okay, is slightly on the left, towards the left-hand side. It is not in the center, okay, it is towards the left-hand side. And then your right-hand side will have a longer tail. So it will look something like this, then your tail like that, okay? The whisker is slightly longer on the right-hand side. Okay, so this one we call it as positively skewed. And the other way happen for the negatively skewed. So negatively skewed, you'll see that your median, if you look at the whole box and whisker plot, your median is towards the end of the right-hand side or more towards the right-hand side of the whole graph. Okay, and then your left-hand side got a longer tail. Okay, on the negative side, on the left-hand side, so we call it as negatively skewed. Okay, so there are 3 answers that you can tell them. when they're asking for the distribution of the data or maybe the shape of the data. Okay, so this is how we look at it from the box and whisker plot. Okay, if let's say I want you to compare it with the histogram, then it's very easy. When you draw the histogram, right, no matter you are drawing what kind of histogram, then you can roughly have a look. If let's say you see that the highest bar is more or less on the more or less at the center of your histogram. Hey, sorry, I draw it wrongly. Okay, so if let's say on the symmetrical side, your histogram will look more or less, okay, symmetry, left and right. So that means your highest bar will be in the center, and then the left and right hand side, they might not be exactly the same height, but more or less they look the same. Okay, all right, so we call it as symmetrical if you look it from the histogram. If let's say you are having a negatively skewed, then your histogram will look something like this. The highest bar or the mean, okay, the highest bar I can say will be more towards the right hand side, and then left hand side you have more bars, which is the lower one. So we call it as negatively skewed. Okay, then how about for positively skewed? I think you can guess the shape already. So it might be something like this. Okay, maybe the highest bar will be on the right. It will not be necessarily the highest on the on the left. Okay, not necessarily the highest must be always on the left, but it is more on the left hand side. And your right hand side you got more lower bar. So this one is called as positively skewed. Okay, so this kind of question they might ask you in the exam, but it won't contribute too many marks. Usually it's 1 mark. Okay, either histogram or either from the box and whisker plot. Okay, so remember you have 3 answers. What is the shape of the data, or maybe you can, or what is the distribution of the data? So there are 3 answers: either negatively skewed, either symmetrical, or either positively skewed. No other answer. Okay, so please make sure that you try to write out something like this in the exam. Simple will do. No need to explain. No need to discuss in detail. So all the explanation here is for understanding. Okay, all the explanation here is for understanding. You no need to purposely go and memorize it now. Okay, all right. And after that, what else do we have? Okay, so if you scroll to the very last part of our graph of our chapter, okay, so there's another part, 1.5. Okay, so for this 1.5, choosing the measure and diagram. Okay, so there are some advantages and disadvantages shown here. Okay, so what is the advantages for modes, median, mean, and what are the disadvantages here? So you can just go through it. No need to purposely go and memorize. Same thing happens for the measure of variability. Okay, so what is the advantages, what is the disadvantages, and so on. Okay, then how about, and also the diagrammatic representation. So usually for all the diagram, right, you need to remember the stem and leaf diagram. Then you can say that it shows all the original data. I think this one is very important because they ask quite often. Okay, and then also you need to know what is the cumulative, what is the box and whisker plot, what is the advantages. Okay, so you can compare 2 or more set of data. This is one of the advantages that I think which is quite true, right, for the box and whisker plot. Okay, so this part you just need to go through it. No need to purposely go and memorize everything. All right, okay. So from here you can see that we already completed our chapter 1. It is such a long chapter. It takes more than 1 month to complete it, right? Okay, but in exam usually they will contribute. The marks contributed is not to say less, not to say very little, but quite okay. I think maybe got it is not the same from every year. Okay, but usually when they ask you 1 or 2 questions from here, it will contribute at least maybe 7 to 8 marks like that. Okay, so this is what we have for chapter 1. Okay, so hopefully you are very you get yourself familiar with all the subtopic inside here, and then try to link all of them together and so on. And again, if you want to make sure that you are good and you are good to apply the concept that you learn in class, try more past year question. Then from there you will see okay, actually you understand how much you understand. Okay, from all the lessons here. All right, okay, so very soon we'll start our chapter 2. So chapter 2 and 3 is quite hard actually, which consists of permutation and combination. Then chapter 3 we talk about probability. So this chapter usually students afraid a lot, okay, for stats 1, right? So we'll discuss it in the next video, right?